Seema Mustafa, the editor-in-chief of The Citizen.
I think foreign policy is important because, as Probir also pointed out, it is very, very closely linked and always has been and should be also in one way to domestic policy. So when we first gained independence, we had a foreign policy that took the aspirations of the people and the freedom fighters forward. It was based in supporting struggles across the world. It was based on justice. It was based on non-alignment. And it was based on a proud India which wanted to acquire a voice for the more oppressed and the smaller nations and the struggles of the world. It has gradually changed. And it has changed under different regimes. It hasn't been something that happened yesterday. I'll just talk a little bit about those differences. But when I think what we now are seeing is a real shadow of secrecy over foreign policy, where like when Modi goes, then we know that there has been an event. But when he does not travel, then many things happen which the media, which is completely sold out and compromised, does not highlight. I remember as a young reporter, I went to cover the war in Beirut, and at that point in time realized the difference between what the big four in the media were reporting, which is AP, AFP, Reuters, etc., as compared to what was the reality on the ground. That big media is now the Indian big media, which covers one aspect. What is given to it, like stenographers, we write that, and we do not raise the questions, and we thus do not do the duty that we have to inform you of what is happening. I think we have moved a great deal. I remember that after Vajpayee was the Prime Minister and then Manmohan Singh, the Foreign Office of India evolved a new word as it moved away from the struggles, which it called pragmatic foreign policy. Pragmatic meant supporting and going with the powerful nations. Power was determined by money, giving up on the struggles like the Palestinian struggle, identifying with Israel and the weapons that it had to offer, and actually changing our entire look and approach to the world, like in West Asia, where we accepted Saudi Arabia and gave up on countries, secular countries like Syria and Iran, and of course Iraq, where we stayed silent. And then when we signed the nuclear deal, or tried to sign it also, we followed a congruent foreign policy with the Americans that kept us away from speaking out on issues concerning the countries that had been our traditional friends and were now being subjected to war or bullying by the Americans. Now it is further compounded by the use of religion, and I think the first indication that we really got of it was when Advani visited Israel when he was the Home Minister and spoke of this big similarity between India and Israel surrounded by hostile nations, which was a euphemism for Muslim nations. And that is the similarity on which subsequent governments have also worked on. We have, I think religion now is obviously, we all know, that's why we all are here, of the kind of focus of this government. And that religion is affecting its foreign policy, impacting on foreign policy and our relations in the first concentric circle, and I'm going to focus here on South Asia because of the lack of time. We have used religion to determine our relations with our neighboring countries. It's a very, very strong component. So there is Hindu Nepal, there's Muslim Pakistan, of course. Then there are issues like the Muslim Rohingyas that impact on our relations with Myanmar and Bangladesh. A little bit about Nepal, some of which was in the public realm, but a lot of it was not. When the Prime Minister decided to make this big trip to Nepal. He had also arranged to have and addressed a few public meetings in Lumbini, in various places, where he would speak, directly address the people of Nepal, distribute cycles at some place, distribute money at another, almost a conquering hero of India, moving on as a conquering hero of Nepal. The Nepalese government at that time had agreed, but then there was considerable opposition, and it finally had to temper that down and said that we will hold the meeting and you can attend. Some assertion of sovereignty, and of course then those meetings did not take place. The second defining relationship with, the issue that defines our relationship with Nepal and brought religion out into full play was when Nepal was writing its constitution and insisted on bringing in the word secularism. We must understand that this Hindu kingdom, as it were, was moving and trying very hard to move through its constitution into a world of democracy, into a world of secularism, into a world of social inclusiveness, and those were the factors that it was trying to bring into its constitution. The government of India sent envoys, rushed envoys to Nepal and said, stop, do not use the word secular. It was as dramatic as that, but undercover. Some of us wrote about it, many did not. Nepal obviously could not agree and did not agree, and that was followed by one of the most nasty blockades of the country, of our neighboring country, which was always been our friend. And in that blockade, bully India, the big India, on the issue of religion, secularism, and not Hindu kingdom. We continued that blockade, though of course we covered it under the guise of Madhesi's agitation, which it was not. And only, in fact, as aides, I met them at that time, and they told us very, very clearly that now we have decided that we cannot depend on India and we are going to reach out to China. And you can see what is happening already. They've signed the pacts on oil and energy because that was their main problem. There was such worry, such deep fear, and such deep anger in Nepal. And now there is a strategic road under construction from Tibet to Nepal, which can even act as a runway for planes. A railway has been started between the two countries, and what we were trying to bully and who we were trying to control by undermining their sovereignty in the name of Hinduism, which might not have been uttered but was the basis of foreign policy or of our policy with Nepal, has actually pushed them towards the China that we have so many problems with. Muslim Pakistan, I don't think I need to go into great detail because that's something out up there. It has always been a tool that has been used to equate Pakistan with the Indian Muslim and then both with terrorism. Every word, every sentence, Pakistan has become so important for the religious right there also, but here as well, in trying to whip up frenzy against the Indian Muslim and continuing to keep that frenzy alive as elections move from the states into the center in 2019. And this linkage is very deep. There has been no shift, so that means no peace, no dialogue. Every country, every government, when it comes into power, has a choice whether it will move towards peace or whether it will move into war, whether it will support justice or it will support all the unjust regimes of the world. Every government takes that choice, makes that choice. And this choice has been that no dialogue, no peace, constant threat of war, constant threat of Pakistan, constant conflict, constant terrorism, as that has become a very, very important part of this Hindutva ideology and its propaganda. This is not to say that there has not been reason. I'm not going into what the Pakistan has done or not, because there is no time, but to talk about the fact that India is the big country in South Asia. India could have changed the face of South Asia. There has been any number of times when we have held SARC to ransom and not allowed it to be held. So the result is that issues of commonality, poverty being that, gender justice being another, education, development, all these issues which could have turned South Asia into Europe. I mean, if you go back to that, they've resolved their centuries of bitterness and hostility and wars into a union, which we have not even moved towards, where India was required just by its sheer size and its aspirations and its independence and its struggles and its diversity and democracy. We are the largest democracy here. We were not able to take this forward at all. So it is still being used to whip up anti-Muslim hysteria, the beefeaters, love jihad, and now of course communists, dissenters, all of you here would probably be getting messages from trolls to go to Pakistan. The third issue I just want to raise right now is about the Rohingyas, again Muslim. So where one of the most grievous attacks on an entire population, the most heinous attack, and India has nothing to say about it. We have not even spoken out against the Myanmar regime for what it has done to an entire community and to a part of its own state. And instead, our only contribution has been to threaten the 40,000 Rohingyas who have not come here now. We've done any number of stories on their camps in Delhi, in the camps in Jammu. They've been settled for 10 years, 15 years, and to threaten them with deportation. This got India, the big democracy, the big voice for refugees as we had become, into serious trouble with international communities in the sense of human rights organizations, of peoples. There's been a lot of criticism, but obviously it has worked at home. And this is a key element at the moment of Indian foreign policy, where the Rohingya issue is being merged with the Bangladesh illegal migrants issue, which is being then used to whip up further hysteria against Muslims, because all are obviously from the Muslim community, to the point where the Prime Minister, when he was campaigning for the elections in Assam, made it very clear that while Hindu refugees are more than welcome, and India will go out and roll out the red carpet to embrace them, the Muslims will not be allowed in. And which is why we have posted 6,000 soldiers on the borders of Bangladesh, India, to prevent this influx, if it happens, of the Rohingya Muslims. And yet again, apart from and this is not even sound foreign policy. Like I showed in Nepal, we wrote and we know that Nepal has been pushed from being a very Indian acolyte, as it were, to the Chinese. So also you find now China coming in, a very strong friend of Myanmar. It has come in by applauding Bangladesh for its position in accepting the Rohingya refugees, of opening its doors, of settling them in Cox's Bazar, of giving them full protection and looking after their needs. China says that and has come up just recently with a 3-point plan for what it calls the settlement of the issue, and has urged Myanmar and Bangladesh to both work on it, and said that there should be a ceasefire first, then there should be talks and rehabilitation, or at least some kind of peace. It hasn't really spelled it out, but that is still a plan which big India could have come with, were it not looking at this whole issue through the periscope of dirty religious bigotry, and instead had been looking upon it and the issue upon this entire incident, or through the eyes of a humane country committed to what it had gained independence on. Unfortunately, none of this has happened, and you will find the trolls and the media constantly linking the Rohingyas with the Muslims. There are ways and ways of doing it. apart from the trolls who directly link you and link the person they are attacking to the Rohingya Muslims, asking, do you want these guys here just because you're a Muslim, you want these guys here, and posting their photographs. Then you have the media news channels, and I would urge all of you who are educated and more informed than many of us over here, that when the media propagates or covers these issues, always look at the panelists as well. You will have a Muslim speaking for the Rohingya Muslims. This is how over the years the secular space was taken away by all the television channels. When there was an issue, say like a communal violence or a communal incident, the two faces that you would see would be from the Hindutva, the BJP side, or a Muslim Maulana. The secular voice was never given the space to speak on what should have been a secular issue. And the same is now very visible in the treatment of these issues, of this call for war, this jingoism, the macho nationalism, which our foreign policy is being converted to. Thank you.